Again, welcome to all of our guests, visitors this morning. Welcome to you that are online. My topic this morning, my title is How to Control Your Family and Friends. You're gonna get your pencil out. By the way, to the visitors, I think I'm a stand-up comedian. So, sorry you have to suffer. But, I make so many sacrifices for you. I hope you understand that. Because I have to watch television, so I have something to say. So I was watching Star Trek, The Strange New Worlds. You know what I'm going to talk about. You remember, this show has always been social justice oriented. In the 1960s, it was the first multiracial cast on television. But no matter the graphics, the high tech, the images, guess what? The same problem exists, and that's conflict. Internal conflict causes us to have conflict with relationships. We end up with troubled relationships because of our internal conflict. Now, I have been trying to answer the question over the last few weeks. I didn't tell you this, but the question is, why come here? People say you can see it online. Why do you need to come here? And this morning's message is about belonging and connection. And it's very difficult to do that with your television or your screen. So belonging and connection. Belonging is a close relationship. When you have good relationships with people, when you're around them and you just feel like you fit. Now, Spock was always my idol. I loved it. I always envied his attempt to put away his emotions and make logical decisions. Why? Because I didn't want to be hurt. I was multiracial as well, adopted. I got a story just like everybody else. Nonetheless, it was a role model for me. However, it's our human side that makes us human. Our emotions make us human. Now, Spock is multiracial. He's Vulcan as well as human. I can't walk away from that one. I can't be Vulcan. But I'd like to be, pointed ears and all. But he always tries to put away his emotions. And so he had a troubled childhood. Anybody else have one? Vulcans, they had a history. They answer all the questions of life now by logic, but historically they were extremely passionate, emotional people, and they almost destroyed their society. So they decided to go 180 degrees in a different direction, and that was to only deal with logic. But Vulcans, and half of Spock is just Vulcan. He just has to deal with it. So he tried to put away these emotions, but it didn't work. And so what happens when we try to put away our emotions, or put away who we are? What happens when we try to bury who we authentically are? We end up in self-denial, self-loathing, and shame. Will your life improve if you just are able to control your family and friends? But will your life also improve if you put away the part of you of really who you are? Vulcan children would provoke Spock to have an emotional outburst. Have you ever been provoked? Is there some people who just know where your button is and they push it all the time? And you rehearse what you're going to do before you see them. That's called Thanksgiving and Christmas and maybe Easter. To express what he tried to suppress, to act out. That's what gives us the message. That's what we want to do. We want to act out. So if you've been provoked, you know how it feels. Then you feel even worse after it's done. You realize people, as my mother would say, you let somebody use your mind. I mean, it was just like that was insult to injury. Have you ever felt different from the people you are around? Have you ever asked yourself, do you belong? Do you ask yourself? It's easy at work because, at least you can get out of there. But in every situation in life, have you ever reflected on whether or not you belong? Do you fit? but we can't ignore who we are. When we are inauthentic, an internal conflict starts. And this will prevent us from having healthy relationships. We cannot have belonging and connection if we're inauthentic. It's impossible for you to connect to people because you're always hiding something. Where do you belong? I hope you feel that you belong here. I hope that you feel that you are connected here, because that is what healthy faith community does. It gives us belonging and it gives us connection. Would the internal conflict end if you could just control your family and friends? Our spiritual principle says, I bring my unique expression to life and create a space for others to do the same. Same as the affirmation this morning. I use today Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown. Very great book. What is an atlas? An atlas is a collection of maps. It illustrates infinite possibilities of where you can go. And that's what she's trying to share, that communication, how do you communicate with individuals and other people when you are, in this world that we're in? The atlas is the macro view. We see the world and all of its infinite destinations and possibilities. But how do you choose? How do you choose your destination? Where do you go? How do you know when you get there you are going to belong? Would it increase your belonging and connection if you could just control the people that are around you? Brown writes, places we go when we search for connection and belonging. Now, I won't even get into the fact that many of us have gone to the wrong place to try to belong and fit in. But nonetheless, we come together for belonging and for connection. But we have to contrast that with fitting in. Do you fit, right? Have you been with somewhere and you just felt that you had no business being there? You just wanted to wait till it was over to get out. Thanksgiving, Christmas. Is this a place that you really want to spend your time and share yourself? Do you feel that you belong? And I'm asking you today to reflect on that. Do you feel that you belong here? Because if you feel that way and you have connection, it will be very difficult for you to feel that way unless you're here. I hope you feel that you belong. Did you belong to your family? Did you belong in high school? What about college? Did you get along or were you belonging? We must first belong to ourselves before we can ever try to belong to a greater community. It always starts in us. Now, Science of Mind, CSL, CSA, we have been accused of being self-centered. We only talk about ourselves. Well, guess what? If I don't get myself together, all I'm going to do is inflict pain on everybody else. Maybe that is a little bit of what's wrong with people. They need to get in touch with who they are and resolve their own issues and learn how to become authentic. Because if you only do what people do now to connect, what they do is they find something that they are against, and that becomes the community they become a part of. It is divisive. It is always division. And that is not healthy environment. We are human, and therefore we are a social species. Without having belonging and connection, we suffer. Have you ever felt alone in life? It is painful. I remember the Chinese food on Christmas. I've moved all around the country. I've lived in 7 states. And I know what it is to be lonely, particularly on holidays. Belonging and connection is a part of our well-being. Our wholeness, our well-being has to do with the relationship we have with ourselves and the relationship we have with other people. Our world, though, has become increasingly divisive. Disconnection is often equated with social rejection, social exclusion, and social isolation. And these feelings of disconnection share the same neural pathways as physical pain. They share the same neural pathways as physical pain. Be suffering and not belonging and feeling alone is painful. A healthy faith community is about belonging, it is about connection, and we have to be together. This is Thanksgiving and Christmas all by itself every time we get together every week. It's always best to be here. You can be away. If you need to be away, it's great. We're online. We're glad for all of you that are online. We welcome you. We think it's a little bit better if you're here. You might be uncomfortable here if you don't want belonging and connection, because there's not a lot of personal space here if you ever thought about it, right? We must belong to ourselves as much as we belong to others. Any belonging that says that we have to betray ourselves is not true belonging. It's not true. True belonging is a spiritual practice of believing and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find it as sacred that you can do it. And being a part of something because your identity is important to the makeup of the universe. I keep telling you, you are that important. But once you realize and how you can get along with yourself, when you have a wilderness experience, you can manage and you can tolerate it. True belonging doesn't require you to change. That's not what it's about. It requires you to be who you are. You have to have faith in who you are to belong. It requires us to be who we are. You can only feel that you belong when you are your most authentic self, with yourself as well as others. We can never truly belong if we betray ourselves and our values and the things that we love and trust to be true. It's not true belonging. That's fitting in. Belonging is not passive, though. Belonging is a practice. It is a practice. It is a spiritual practice to be in community. And it requires us to be vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable to be able to belong and connect. But in a healthy environment, you can trust the people you are around when you're vulnerable. We learn how to deal with our discomfort together. Now, there is a difference between fitting in and belonging. Listen to these quotes. Belonging is being somewhere you want to be and they want you to be there. Okay? Fitting in is being somewhere you want to be, but they don't care whether or not you're there or not. Not belonging at school was hard, but it was worse to not belong at home. When people don't accept who you are at home, I mean, there's some pressure children have, right? To be athletes, to have certain dispositions, to have certain skills, to marry and have 2 children. You know, my mother gave that up at 18. She just let that go. You know, she said, I'm never going to have grandchildren. I said, not unless you have another baby. You know, belonging is being accepted for being you. Fitting in is being accepted for being like everyone else. I know when I belong because they get me. Now, when I have to be like you, that's fitting in. Now, these were answers from 8th graders. Now, for that level of insight, that lets you know the life that children lead these days. That's pretty high-functioning stuff. But it applies to us even today. Fill in the blanks. You can replace family with friends, spouse, lover, whatever, and you can have the same questions about belonging and connection. When your parents don't feel that you are the person you want to be, it is just tragic. And these 8th graders answered this, and Brene Brown says she did this survey of an enormous amount of people, and these were the themes that repeatedly were actually shared. If you don't feel that you belong, you must first ask yourself, are you being authentic? But no matter what you have been through or what your situation has been, you can overcome. Because with God, all things are possible. So be here, be you, and belong. Connection is the energy between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. Valued. You know how that feeling when you're around certain people that you feel valued when you're with them, appreciated, loved, and accepted? When you can give and receive without worrying about judgment. You receive power and strength from being together, and the strength from the relationship. I hope when you hit the door, you feel if I could just get there, I will get refreshed to be able to make it through next week. When you are here, you receive power from the strength of the relationship. So let's return to that atlas. Let's look at these destinations. The destinations I want to talk about relate to your family and friends. How do we have meaningful connection? And we're going to first talk about not having them, what we are most familiar with most of the time. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. There are 3 possible stops on the way to having healthy relationships of belonging and connecting. The 3 stops are how we manage relationships. Those 3 towns are Envy Town, Pity Town, and Disappointment Town. Been there? Envy Town is when you want what someone else has. You just want it. You feel like you are making a comparison. You're saying, I deserve that. I want that just like they have. It's not healthy. It will not bring you a belonging and connection. How do you respond when people have good fortune that you know? Do you celebrate with them? Really? What about the people you don't like? Can you celebrate in their good fortune? Ain't that a hard one? I mean, it's just a hard one. But if everyone is the face of God, that's what we're supposed to do. Do you take pleasure in the misfortune of others, particularly in people that you don't like? Can you enjoy the success even of people? I'm not talking about them abusing anyone else, but can the people you don't like, can you rejoice with them? Even the people we don't like. I always have to put it that way because I never want to distinguish a group of people and say, these are the people that are against me or against us. It's just the people we don't like. Life is very much like a team experience. We're supposed to celebrate when somebody else makes the touchdown, and that's the limit of my sports analogies. If you rejoice over someone's misfortune, I'm going to be honest with you, that is something you take to prayer. Because that is abuse and violence. It's just in your mind. You don't have to do it. It's in your heart. It's in your mind. If your thoughts are, I feel sorry for you, when you hear of misfortune, and you say, boy, I bet that sucks. That's pity. That is pity. That is not connection. That is not compassion at all. Compassion is what resolves the situation. Compassion fosters the connection. It says, whatever you're going through, me too. I've been sad, I've been angry, I've been disappointed. Pity says, I am glad that it is not me. Can the church say amen? Mm-hmm. That couldn't happen to me. Have you ever said that? What I say is, but by the grace of God. Pity keeps us at a distance. We replace pity with compassion. What happens when we just don't have good relationships? We have to change before we are going to meet perfect people to belong and be connected to. Because if we are messed up, even if you met the perfect person, it's probably not going to go well. That's that showing up needing love thing that we talk about every time. Ask people, how can I support you? Don't ever downplay someone else's misery. Don't say, well, that's not really that bad. If it feels that bad to them, walk with them. Be clear that you hear them and that you understand and you support them. And I don't personally have had to experience the same thing for me to have compassion on someone else or to be an advocate for someone else. Don't try to walk in anybody else's shoes. You walk alongside people and you let them have their experience and you let them know that they're loved and supported even when they are in pain. Our third stop is Disappointment Town. Now, Disappointment Town is this place where, because we have a movie playing in our head about how everybody is supposed to interact with us, right? It's, you know how you practice what you're going to say until you get there. Oh, maybe you guys are perfect and you don't have to worry about that. I do. When this is said, this pushes my button, so I'm not going to say this, I'm not going to say that. Disappointment time is when people don't live up to our expectations. But I have to ask you the question, does the person even know that that's what you expect? Have you made it known what you expect? How many times has someone said to me, they ought to know? They ought to know. Brene Brown says, in her family, birthdays were a big deal. You were the center of attention on your birthday. And she never told her husband, and she got married, and on the first birthday she had after they got married, she was mad and ready to get divorced. But she never had shared with him that celebrating her birthday was important to her. That's what it means to be vulnerable, to tell someone this is what is important for me. Don't have stealth relationships. You're not going to belong and feel connected if it's stealth. You can't see it at all. No one knows anything about it. It's just, most often I find when people have relationships issues, most of the time it is because the person doesn't feel appreciated and loved because of these things. And I always say, do they know what you expect? Do they know what cuts the cord? If you go here, baby, it's over. No one will know unless we tell them. There's no way to have communication and belonging if we aren't willing to tell people what we expect. So instead of having a movie, I encourage you to paint a picture with the people that are important to you. Let it define what your expectations are, what you expect the outcome to be, so that you can fill in the picture together to understand what your relationship should be. I wish I had learned this much earlier in my life, because I did just wish things to be different. I didn't always know that I could be clear and say, once I was identified and I could necessarily be authentic with myself, it's like there's certain things we cannot do. But here is what I expect. There's certain things you can't say in front of me. You can't say something racist in front of me. Even though, Rick, you're okay. That doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. I'm also not, Rick, you're my, one black friend. I mean, that's not the picture that I want to go along with. We have to get rid of the movie and paint a picture together that illustrates what we expect from one another. The next time that you are disappointed with your family and friends, ask yourself, do they even know what you expect? Do they know? Have you communicated? Did you communicate it well? We always own part of the relationship. We're 50% of it. Expectations. Did we paint a picture of our expectations? Could I have done better in expressing what I expect? Or is my expectation for them absolutely out of their control? Have you ever known someone, and sometimes it could be a very important relationship, but they're just not capable of giving you what you want? There's no need of expecting it because they can't do it. Why are you setting yourself up for anger? So how do you control your family and friends? You establish expectations so that you can belong and be connected. And I know generally we're not the loudest voice in the room, but if you want to be in relationship with me, there are just certain things that you just cannot do. But this is what we can do together. But you cannot take away the pain from someone else and try to fix them, because if you do, That is not our responsibility to fix another person, even if we know better for them than they know for themselves. That's not healthy relationships. Our happiness and our feelings are our responsibility. We have successful relationships because we're clear about who we are when we relate to other people and get clear about the expectations. We control our relationships and our part in them. Stop wishing for things to be different if people don't know what we expect. Our happiness is never given away. It's shared. You can't give away your happiness and no one else can give theirs away to you. Happiness is shared. To experience belonging, we must be authentic and resist fitting in. We can celebrate that everyone is an individualization of the supreme and one powerful mind that actually has created us all. Love created us all, and we all play an important part in that. We are an expression of the one. So the message to Mr. Spock, he called me up, and I said, this is what you have to do. You cannot hide a part of yourself if it is important to you. And generally, the things that that hurt us are the things that are important to us. Feeling and emotions are part of the human species, and it's a beautiful thing. It's all right to fit in after you belong to yourself. Because once you belong to yourself, you can fit in. Because it's not going to destroy you. It's not going to be a painful relationship because you can be in the wilderness because you are okay with yourself. It is all right to be who we are. Rid yourself of the self-denial, of the self-loathing, and the shame. You belong here, by the way. We accept you just the way you are. Your uniqueness, we celebrate it. Even when I have to swallow hard and go, Lord have mercy. You know, because, I mean, we get surprised sometimes, but it is celebrated here. You are celebrated. Bring your unique expression here. Your unique expression here. If we started all being the same way, wouldn't this be a dangerous world? And it certainly would be boring. Why would I want somebody like me? It's much more interesting to have the color and flavor of the assortment of people who are here. You are celebrated. Bring your unique expression. But at the same time, create space for others. They deserve to have the same experience as we do. And so it is. Amen.